Ma'am, raise your right hand, please.
Stand.
Ma'am, do you solemnly swear the testimony you should give to the court and the jury and the issues now pending between the Commonwealth and the defendant at the bar should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please be seated, miss.
Now, ma'am, in a nice loud voice that I can hear you all the way over here, could you state your name? Could you spell your last name?
Anna. A-N-N-A. Trubnikova. T-R-U-B-N-I-K-O-V-A.
Now, ma'am, do you know an Adrian Loya?
Yes,
Do you see him in court today? Where is he, please?
he's over there.
May the record reflect she's identified the defendant, Your Honor.
So noted.
Now, ma'am, drawing your attention back to 2015, were you married?
I was
To who?
Lisa
And do you know what Lisa's maiden name was?
Berlinga.
All right. In drawing your attention to February of 2015, where were you living?
The address,
Yes.
11 Roundhouse Road,
Do you know what town that was?
Bourne, Massachusetts.
All right. And were you and Lisa in any military service of the United States?
Yes, we were both active duty
In what?
in the Coast Guard.
In the Coast Guard. Where were you assigned at that time, in February of 2015?
Woods Hole,
Woods Hole. And where was Lisa stationed, if you know?
Base Cape Cod,
Do you know where that is?
the Otis base.
Okay, the Otis base? Okay. And could you tell us, earlier in the day on February 4th, do you remember where you had been or what you had done that day?
For that week, I was assigned to a military class that I attended from 8 to 4, and then I came home, and Lisa and I went at some point to a car dealership. She had totaled her car about a month prior, so she needed a new one. And then we went to the mall. Afterwards, we came home.
All right. And do you know about, just in general figures, what time did you get home?
Around 9-ish.
All right. And what did you do once you got home?
We went straight up stairs and kind of settling for the night. Watched TV, kind of laid in bed.
All right. Do you know what time you went to bed to sleep that night?
I don't know exact time, but within maybe an hour, hour and a half
Okay.
after we came home.
Did you both go to sleep at the same time, if you know?
As close as I can guess, yes. I think, turned off TV lights, and I remember she cuddled up to me, and so at some point we fell asleep, I guess.
Okay. What's the next thing you remember?
There, I think, was some sort of noise to where she kind of stirred in bed, so I think that woke me up, and I, half asleep, kind of remember some noise. I don't know what it was. Yeah, so that was like the first thing.
All right. So did you hear a noise when you woke up?
I think so.
All right. What's the next thing that happened?
She, I think, said something to me, which I said, it's nothing. I'm pretty sure I was half asleep, but I said it's nothing and that it might be the cats. And then I think I heard some other noise and a lot more pronounced, I guess. And then I just heard very heavy stomping, like someone is approaching up the stairs.
Okay. Now, you had mentioned some cats. Did you have cats in the apartment?
I did. We had 2 cats.
All right. And were they roaming free?
Yes.
Did you have any other animals?
We had a puppy at that time who was in his crate in our bedroom.
All right. So you heard some heavy footsteps, you thought on the stairs. What's the next thing that happened?
A tall body stormed through the door, the entrance door to the bedroom, which was kind of at the end of our bedroom, and our bed was, so it was a little long. It was dark in the room, so the person was dressed in all dark, and we saw a light. I think I remember identifying like a flashlight because it was shining in our faces. And at some point you can, where I could see that it's a rifle of some sort.
Okay. So you notice that this person comes into the room, correct?
Yes.
Could you tell at that point what, if anything, they had with them in terms of weapons?
I don't know if it was right that second because I think there was a lot of shock and confusion. He was yelling, that light in your face. So I don't think it was right away, but the more he was talking or like shouting commands, then I saw that he had another, maybe a rifle of some sort on his left shoulder.
What was he yelling?
He was, at first it was like separate, I think because Lisa right away starts saying, "Who are you?" or like, "What do you want?" type. He wouldn't say anything, so eventually I think her questions prompted him to yell out, "Shut up, separate."
So, do you remember when he said separate, where were you in relationship to Lisa?
I was on the right side of the bed. She was on my left.
Were you close or far apart at the edge of the bed? Do you
Yes,
remember?
I think we kind of came together. I don't know, because we were so confused. And then he was kind of in the middle of the room.
What's the next thing that happened?
I think because we weren't responding the way we were told, he was agitated. I mean, I thought,
I object.
Not what you thought, but what you heard or what you saw, please.
So what happened next?
Well, I wasn't as cooperative because it didn't seem right, that it was maybe a wrong house. Like, none of it made sense, so we didn't respond.
Oh, that can stand.
So when you said you weren't cooperative to what?
The commands to get off the bed and separate, I think, or in that situation, I didn't want to separate because it was very confusing. He just kept ordering. Oh, he came up to the edge of the bed and pulled the covers off of us. And at some point after that, he got my phone that was on my right on the nightstand and threw it away somewhere. I'm not sure where. And just continued doing that. I think at that point we were very panicked, and it seemed very deliberate towards us that it was not a mistake.
What was the next thing that happened?
Just yelling, just kind of, he seemed to be agitated, and he said to get on separate ends of the bed on the floor, face down. Lisa kept objecting and I think asking, what do you want? Like, who are you? He had a mask on and a lot of tactical gear, so we had still no idea who it was or why. And at that point, I believe he cocked the gun and kind of approached us, so I told Lisa to just do whatever he wants, and to get down on that side, and then I also followed. So we both at that point got on opposite sides of the bed.
What's the next thing that happened?
He threw handcuffs at us. He reached them from the back of his gear, and he threw one to me first and threw to Lisa the other, and he directly spoke to her and said, in a very facetious way, you know what to do with them. Neither of us complied, and the last thing I wanted to be is restricted in that situation, so I refused to do it. He noticed that and was shouting and ordering more commands, saying, put them on. I put the handcuffs on my side on my right wrist, and I hid my left hand under some clothes or something, so that I could avoid not putting them on completely.
So you put them on one wrist, but not the other. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
What's the next thing that happened?
I don't think Lisa did it. I believe she just was very defiant. I actually, before the handcuffs, because Lisa kept asking, who are you and what do you want, he did take the mask off.
And did you recognize who it was at that point?
I did, because she yelled out his name in shock, and so it kind of just both came together for me as well, because I wasn't as familiar with him.
Who was it?
It was Adrian Loya.
Okay. What's the next thing that happened?
After the handcuffs?
Yes.
He was talking to her. Most of that time that he was in the room, he mostly spoke to her. He said, actually shortly after he took the mask off, he said, and she kind of shouted his name, and he's like, "See what you've done to me. You kind of like you're making me do this. Like this is what I've become, type of, because of you." And she was asking, "What did I do?" or "Sorry." And he said, "It's too late." Just a lot of repetitive things over and over. I mean, she would mostly say, "I'm sorry," or "Why are you doing this?" I don't know if he ever specified why, except saying that she did this to him and something about Kodiak. And I just know that she said, like, "I'm sorry, I was drunk. I didn't mean to hurt you." Somewhere in between that, I also kept saying, "I'm sorry." I think I tried to appease him. He seemed angry, a little agitated, walking kind of back and forth in the room, looking to the window, back at the door.
Now, let me ask you a question, if I could stop there for a second. You said Kodiak.
Yes.
What significance did Kodiak have to you at that time?
We were all stationed in Kodiak, Alaska.
And you say, "Oh, who would that have been?"
My wife, Lisa, me, and him.
Okay. And now you indicated, you said he was looking out the window. Where in the room was the window?
So from the wall of the bed, it was to my left. It was 3 different windows
Together.
together.
Do you know what that, if you were to look out that window, what you would be looking towards or at?
A bit of a field, an open field behind some woods, and probably further that way, the road or the entrance of the road.
Okay. Then you mentioned he was pacing around the room. Go on from there, please.
He was angry at us for not complying and agitated, but seemed to be having.
I object.
Well, if you saw something about his demeanor and you can describe it, you can certainly tell the jurors what you saw. What you can't do is tell us what's going on in his head, unless he said something or by gesture or by mannerism gave you something that you can describe to the jurors.
What was your question?
Okay. We'll just step back a bit. You indicated that he was looking at the window. He began pacing around the room. Okay, what's the next thing that happened after that?
In between telling us what to do, he looked at the window, and at some point, he walked towards the door that he came from and kind of looked towards it, but didn't linger very long. I figured he heard something, and afterwards he became a little bit more time constricted. kind of got back once again to getting us to do what he wanted.
Now, you're still where in the room?
We're on opposite ends of the bed.
All right. What's the next thing that happens?
He approached us after looking at the door and threw glow sticks that he activated by his mouth, with his mouth. So he threw one near me where I was halfway lying down, and one at Lisa's side where she was kind of the same.
So at that time, there were no, did he turn on the light in the bedroom?
No.
Okay, so there were no lights other than what?
The end of his gun and the glow sticks.
Okay, now the end of his gun, you say because why?
He had one of those mounted lights onto it.
Okay.
Where he was holding the light on top like police do when they search.
Okay. So what's the next thing that happened?
It's hard for me to remember exactly what came after it. It seemed very fast.
Well, just tell us what you do remember, that's fine.
He continued to pace, talk to Lisa for the most part. I think actually when she refused to put the handcuffs, he approached her and there was some sort of physical contact. Either she tried to push him away or I don't know exactly what it was, but I remember he came very close to her. And I was very shocked that, because she knew him well from before, he just said, like, this makes no sense. Why are you doing this? And so he backed up. I think more time kept going by, and he again looked and approached the door. He disappeared from my view for a split second. By instinct, I tried to...
Object.
Oh, go ahead. You can tell us what you did.
I started to pull the mattress towards me, over me, and Lisa saw that, and she pushed it towards me from her side and jumped over now the empty bed side of it. So some of it was still on the bed. And she crawled over to my side of the bed, so we're now on the right side of the bed.
Where was the mattress?
Once she sat next to me, it was halfway over us, halfway on the corner of the bed. So I think it was tilted at some point towards me. And then the other side was more raised over her. And he heard the ruffling. He reappeared and said, "What do you think you're doing?" Rushed towards us with the rifle. And kind of tried to pull it off of us,
The mattress.
the mattress.
Go ahead.
But from what I remember, the mattress stayed covering the lower half of us, maybe a little less her than me because I was more into the corner that was tilted down.
And what's the next thing that happened?
He was standing over us, pretty close. I heard one shot out of the rifle. I don't remember seeing it, but I remember hearing it. But that was it, and I thought maybe it's a warning shot. Can I actually backtrack to him approaching the mattress?
Then what happened?
When he approached the mattress and pulled it, or tried to pull it back off of us, I realized that Lisa had grabbed her phone from her side and was doing something with it to where when I looked at her, the screen of the phone was lit up and it was very bright.
And what's the next thing that took place?
I realized that he's now approaching us and we'll see that, and I knew that's just gonna make him angrier because he's probably gonna,
Or just tell us what he did.
I knocked it out of her hand, being afraid that he's gonna,
I object.
No, she can have that. Explains her purpose.
Go ahead.
I knocked it out of her hand, fearing that that's only gonna make him angrier, since to that point we weren't shot yet. Maybe there was an opportunity to not do it.
What happened?
I knocked it out, and that's when that shot came out. He said, "What are you doing? What do you think you're doing?" And maybe seconds afterwards, there were more shots. I knew they weren't at me. I didn't feel it yet. The sound also went to my left. And at some point, there were more shots, and then I finally felt getting shot myself, mainly through my right arm going numb and curling up. I didn't know anything else. Afterwards, at some point, the shot ceased. I figured we only have seconds after that to live. I turned to Lisa. And I love you, to which she responded, I love you too. And we were very close. She was facing me, kind of, and I just turned my head towards her, and I kissed her lips, and I remember the lips going numb, or not numb, limp, as if she got really weak. And right after that, I heard a lot of gushing blood, gurgling almost, and she started choking, like a wet cough, and exhaled, and it was a very deep exhale, and I, for myself, knew that she was dead at that point.
Where was Mr. Loya during that period of time, if you know?
After the shots were fired, I do not remember having a visual on him. I didn't know if he was next to us or left the house, or left the room, I don't know.
All right. Did you see Lisa's phone at that time?
I did not.
What happened next?
I was laying there after I figured she died, waiting to die. I didn't feel a whole lot physically. I figured she died, so I'm next. A matter of seconds, but as soon as I realized I was thinking and processing the information, I knew that I at least wasn't shot in the head. And just more thoughts came up, as in if he's in the house still, if somewhere in between those thoughts, I heard in the back of my head somewhere, I was, I think, halfway in the closet, in a walk-in closet. I heard, I think, a man saying 911, what's your emergency? I realized that at some point she must have dialed 911. And perhaps the phone was on the whole time. I reached for it with my left hand. I couldn't move. I think that was the only moving part on me at that point. And I tried to speak to whoever it was. I think they were not very responsive. Either I was on hold, or there was a moment where I wasn't really speaking to them, and then somebody else started talking to me, or there was like a ringing. I was very confused, and so then again they asked me, what's your emergency? And I said that my wife and I were shot, that she's dead, and
Now, did you know at the time, right then, where you had been shot? And by that I mean where on your body you had been shot?
at the first words with 911, I only knew that there's something wrong with my right arm. Obviously to me it was obvious that it was from the shots, but I did not know exactly what's wrong.
And when you're on the phone with 911, you had an opportunity to listen to a recording of that call, didn't you?
Say that again?
Yes, you've had an opportunity to listen to that 911 call between you and the 911 people, right?
Yes,
And that's a fair and accurate depiction of what took place, isn't it?
yes.
And I'd like to play that now.
Counsel's offering to play the call. Attorney Segadelli,
No objection.
he may do so.
I have prepared transcripts for my...
All right, jurors, we're going to hand out transcripts again, because sometimes these telephone calls are very difficult to decipher the particular words. Like the video, the transcript is only a chalk. That means it's an aid for you to be able to understand and appreciate the exhibit. The recording of the call itself is the exhibit. If anything is said to your ear when playing the call, when playing the disc, that is different than the transcript, it is the disc that controls, not the transcript. Mr. Clerk, do you have a copy of it already? All right.
Yes, actually.
Item for identification as a chalk, please. Thank you. I might have it, Mr. Clerk, after you mark it. Thank you. When you're ready, counsel.
911 is where we have a challenge. This is 911, where are you?
11 Roundhouse Road.
11 Roundhouse, what's going on there?
There is a shooter. My wife and I are both shot.
You're both shot?
Yeah.
Stay on the line, do not hang up for Bourne, do not hang up. Two suspects shot. Bourne, 11 Roundhouse Road. Do you know who shot you?
Yes.
911, find a quarter, where's your mercy? Bourne State, 11
His
Roundhouse.
last name,
Yeah,
his
yeah,
last name is Loya.
yeah, what's the problem?
She shot both of us, me and my wife. His
What?
last name is Loya.
Where at?
11 Roundhouse.
11 Roundhouse? You've been shot?
Both of us were gonna die.
11 Roundhouse, what's your last name?
Trubnikova.
Where's he at?
She left.
He left where?
I don't know.
11 Roundhouse. What did he look like?
She's about,
22 or 3, so you can make your way to 11 Roundhouse.
oh God.
Get on the line because you've been shot. Ma'am?
Yeah.
What's your name again?
Trubnikova.
Tuna? Spell it. Can you spell it for me? You and who else has been shot?
My wife.
Your wife? Ma'am,
Yes.
can you talk to me? Give FDA have a center for the rest. Ma'am, can you talk to me?
Yes.
Who's the person who shot you?
Loya.
Lawyer?
His last name is Loya.
What's his first name? Do you know what his first name is, ma'am? Do you know where he's at now?
No.
No? Is he related to you?
No, he's from the Coast Guard.
He's in the Coast Guard?
Yes.
And what's your name again, ma'am? Spell your last name.
Tacoma.
Spell your last name for her. Spell your last name for me, ma'am. Ma'am. Okay. Hello, ma'am, you still there?
Yes.
Who else is in the house with you? Where have you been shot, ma'am? Ma'am, where have you been shot? Ma'am. Line 514, start heading that way. Ma'am. Hey, we got a report of a gunshot victim, 2 of them at 11 Roundhouse. Female on the phone. Is passing out. Unknown on the mail, last name is Lawyer. Ma'am, can you hear me? You copy anything on the comment? Negative. Just a name, unknown. Negative this time. Ma'am, can you hear me, ma'am? Ma'am. Ma'am, who else is in the house with me, ma'am? Ma'am. Hello, ma'am. Ma'am, can you hear me? Ma'am. Who else is in the house? Ma'am. Can you hear me? Who else is in the house with you? No one, just you? And the lawyer, the one who shot you, where's he at? You don't know? What does he look like?
All in black.
What's that?
All in black.
He's dressed all in black?
And why are you taking so long?
We're on our way there, ma'am. We're right down the street. There's a car fire there. We gotta move the car out of the way to get to you. He's dressed all in black?
Yes, I don't hear anybody.
We're right down the street, ma'am. I need to know what the guy looks like that shot you.
All in black, I think.
He's dressed all in black? Is he a white male?
White male, wearing khakis.
Wearing khakis? And he's dressed with... And all...
Somebody up here.
We are. You said two people were shot. Is it you and somebody else?
No. Please, come on.
Okay, so a white male, all in black. And his last name's Lawyer?
Loya, L-O.
L-O...
Please hurry up.
L-O-Y-A? We are, ma'am, we're right down the street. We gotta make sure, is he in the house?
I'm having a hard time breathing now. Please.
Ma'am,
Seriously.
what's his first name? Hello, ma'am.
Please hurry up.
We're right down the street, ma'am. We're on the road right now.
Seriously.
One police. Roundhouse Road. Just right in the middle of the road. Can't miss it. I'm on 911 right now. Okay.
It's the first one.
What's that? We have a fire department coming and the police are coming. We're right down the road, okay? So he's a white male dressed in black.
I'm completely paralyzed.
Where did he shoot
I'm
you
hard
at?
and breathing.
Where did he shoot you at?
Oh my God.
Units on the scene at possible suspect, a white male dressed in black with khakis. Ma'am, do you know where you've been shot at? Hello, ma'am.
Dad,
Right.
please hurry up.
Yeah, I can't look it up now. I'm still on 911. Ma'am,
Dad,
where have you been shot at?
I'm not here yet.
No? And you're the only one in the house. Do you know if the male party's driving a vehicle? Hello, ma'am?
Dad,
What kind of vehicle, do you know? Hello, ma'am? What's the lawyer's first name? Yeah, what's the lawyer's first name? know it? Hello, ma'am.
Yeah.
What's the lawyer's first name?
Yeah.
What's his first name? Do you know his first name? Do you know the male's first name?
Where are you?
We're right down the street. We're coming up. We're right on the road right now. I need to know the male's last name. What's the male's first name? Ma'am, what's the male's first name? Can you tell me where you've been shot at?
Please hurry up.
We're on that street right now. We're trying to get by. There's a car fire that's blocking the road.
Or are you lying?
I'm not lying. I have 3 units out there, fire trucks there. We're trying to get by. You know, I need to give you some information on the male that shot you.
No. I need.
What's that? And what's your last name?
What?
What's your last name? Can you spell it for me?
Please hurry.
And your first name, ma'am?
Anna.
Anna? Okay. Anna, we're right there. We're going to be right there. But do you know the male's first name? And you know what?
Can you please hurry? Can you?
We are, ma'am. We're right there.
Where are you going?
Bye. Are you going to vehicle fire or electric roundhouse? Ma'am,
Yes.
what's the male's first name?
Where are you going?
What's that? Do you know where you've been shot at? Anna,
What do you want?
Anna. Where are you at in the house?
Yes.
Do you know where you're at in the house?
Upstairs.
Upstairs? Upstairs bedroom? Okay. Bye. Yeah, I'm kind of tied up right now. I'm calling 911. Victim is upstairs in the upstairs bedroom when you get there. Anna. Anna.
Yes.
The male that shot you, he's not in the house, is he? You don't know? Are you locked in your bedroom? You can't move? But it's in the upstairs bedroom. Correct? Anna. 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 Can you hear me? Anna. 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 Talk to me, Anna. Anna, can you talk to me? Anna, can you talk to me? Talk to me, Anna. Hello? Anna, can you talk to me? Anna, can you talk to me? What's going on? Anna. Phone, please. Anna. Anna, can you talk to me? Anna. Anna. Bourne, we're still on, dude. Anna? Anna? Is he still in the house? I don't know. You don't know? All right, tell me about him. What does he look like? Okay, just answer yes or no with me, okay? Is your wife male? Last name Loya? Do you know his first name? What? You don't remember? Is he from the area? Where's he from? He's from where? Okay. He's from Virginia? What? I'm sorry. Do that one more time. Yeah, we're coming as fast as we can get there. Alright, and listen to me, do not hang up your phone. I'm connecting back to Bourne so you can speak with Bourne again, okay? I know you're there. We're getting help to you as fast as we can. Alright, stay on the line. Bourne State, Anna. Hey, thanks for checking the line. Anna. What's going on? Who's the male? You need to tell me who the male is at. Who he is? Do you know who he is? Anna, do you know if the house is all locked up? Anna. Do you know if the house is all locked up? No. Anna. Anna. Please. We're coming. All right? Please. Yes, we are. Please. Anna. Who's the male that shot you? Listen, who's the male who shot you? We need to know. Just in case we come across him, we can hold on to him. What's his name? What is it? Anna. Anna. Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay.
Anna, can you hear me?
All right. Step up with the court officer, please. Jurors, take a recess.
All rise, jurors, please. Jurors, step right out, please.
counsel right down here with Mr. Horgan, please.
You may be seated.